and Brendan Devlin. So they're going to give kind of slightly longer talks. And Brendan is a former chair of LIR and also assistant head of library services and digital services at TU Dublin.
Okay, folks. Actually, I just was thinking myself when I was sitting here. The LIR group spent a number of years there as an officer, or as an ordinary member, as an officer, and then as a chair as well. So I noticed that a number of my colleagues are going to give their take on that, which I'd be looking forward to. Just on a comment there as well, I remember when I was chair, we invited people from Australia to make presentations, and those presentations were online. They weren't just quite as successful as I'm sure the ones were this morning, because clearly time has moved on. But I will just acknowledge that time spent on LIR was one of the better parts of my professional life to date. So I'd like to say that. Okay, so today's presentation relates to a project that was initiated in June 2022 and went on to October 2023, and involved the development of an integrated library system for TU Dublin Library Service. So the project objectives were to integrate 2 iterations of COHA from both Blanchardstown and Tallaght into the Sierra library management system. And in addition to that was the integration with Summon for a single discovery solution, and also for an easy proxy solution that was standard across all libraries within TU Dublin. This project was managed on the basis of a project management approach. TU Dublin is well served by a project management office run by Andrew Kelso, and the definition that he provided for us in our training was that project management is the planning, delegating, monitoring and control of all aspects of the project, and the motivation of those involved to achieve project objectives within the expected performance targets for time, cost, quality, benefits and risks. And basically, I think it's a fantastic sort of initiative in the university, and it certainly helped us work our way through the project in an effective way. So this project that I'm discussing today would be on the low to medium complexity level. There's a number of elements as presented here in this graphic. And basically the benefits of a project management approach are that it facilitates coordination with the university's strategic objectives. It allows visibility of project phases. It facilitates the management and deployment of scarce resources. And it facilitates a focus within the scope of the project, which is very important. When you have limited resources and limited time, you have to be very disciplined in terms of what you do and what you don't do. It facilitates the delivery of the project in time and within budget, and the documentation that is generated from the project can then be used to reflect and to sort of generate organizational knowledge. This is just, I'm going to run through this quite quickly. These are just in terms of the phases of the project conception. We developed a business case proposal that went through the university management team and was agreed. We then went into an initiation and planning phase involving development of a project charter, a project plan and technical plan, a scoping of the project, the budget, developing the budget and getting the monies in place, developing a communication plan, training plan, a migration plan and a risk management plan. And then just in terms of execution and completion of the project, this was a movement of data from 2 systems into a single system. So that demanded a fair degree of data analysis. I know Jared Gregory is well familiar with this end of things anyway. The successful import of the data to the Sierra test server was then attempted. The first attempt was unsuccessful because the vendors hadn't acted on information that we had presented to them. But the second upload was successful. And then once that it was tested on the test server, it was then imported into the production server. Staff training was necessary, clearly, because a number of staff weren't familiar with the Sierra system. So we initiated a staff training plan, and and I'll discuss that very briefly further on. Easy proxy convergence on an CLC instance, and the inclusion of all resources from Tala and Blanchardstown into Summon, and then the reflection on that process. Just in terms of the business case, what we had to do, we had to persuade the university that the project was viable, that it had benefits, and that there was a cost-benefit dividend for the university. So we managed to do that by describing the fact that it would deliver on a number of advantages for the university in terms of the standardization of business processes, the earlier availability of standard search and retrieval function. Those two strands then would facilitate economies of scale in the development of information literacy artifacts across the university. So rather than developing information artifacts in regards to three different ways of looking for information, we had a single way of doing business, and then it clearly enhances the student experiences, which is what we're about. In terms of the budget then as well, there were economies or monies that were saved by the fact that there was in-house expertise to manage that migration process and to analyze the data, to standardize the records, and to make them compatible with ingest into the Sierra system. And also we had another area where monies were saved as well. That resulted in a saving of over 21,000, and that's thanks to Jared Gregory and to Ken Lacey. So diligence in action, basically. The scope of the project basically was to get this integrated system in place and to get the single discovery system up and running as well, and to have a single easy proxy solution in place as well. What we decided was not out of scope was anything related to tendering for a new library management system, the merger of TU Dublin Library website, and ancillary things such as Booked, etc., and then any other exhaustive redesign of business processes. In terms of the training plan, we initiated and targeted what we perceived to be the people who would most benefit from a training. So those were, generally speaking, the people who hadn't used Sierra before, and those who had certain management roles within the library. We developed the training using the user acceptance scripts, developing worksheets so that those who were being trained were working to a particular script and functions that would be used in the circulations module in particular. We developed videos and also in terms of facilitating and making staff comfortable with the transition. It was understood that staff from sites who used Sierra were on hand at all times to help if there should happen to be any difficulties in terms of use. And also there, as well as that, in terms of students and staff, we had in place support for those people who hadn't used Sierra before, as in Tala and Blanchardstown, by ensuring that the staff on those sites and the liaison librarians were available to help them if needs be. We developed a fairly comprehensive communication plan, which involved comprehensive ways of ensuring that all our constituents knew what was going on. So we first of all ensured that library staff and students and academic staff knew that the project was in train. We had a number of as-is workshops which were there to identify the processes that we currently used within the various libraries, and then to-be workshops to develop and to confirm the processes that we intended to use within the Sierra system. Now, what we did here, again, in terms of scoping, we ensured, or the principle was that we would move to the processes that were already being used in Sierra to save time, and with a view to amending any processes that needed amendment after the event, so that the project wasn't held up on that basis. We had a number of roadshows in terms of locations and units, weekly meetings with the vendor Innovative, UAT training, user acceptance tests and training for those involved in testing the data from uploads to ensure that that had run successfully. With on-site training for staff from non-Sierra sites and training videos, as mentioned already. I was the project manager, so we had fortnightly meetings to identify whether there were any difficulties and whether any actions needed to be taken by the project board to deal with those. Communications to all stakeholders at the soft go live and communications to the hard go live, and the final then report to the project board at the end of the project. So here is the project timeline. So from July to December, just to go into the detail, from July to December, we had a preliminary discussion of the proposal. The business proposal was completed. Funds were agreed by the university executive team. Statements of works agreed. The project board meetings were initiated, and the draft project and technical plans were initiated. And then in January, we moved to the contracts were signed. The as-is and to-be workshops were conducted and completed. The patron load redevelopment process was initiated. The communication plans designed and the data migration plan designed as well. From February, the test training server was set up. There was a standardizing of the data fields, a data cleanse of Tala, Blanche, and City data, and Blanche and Tala migration to the test server. Staff training and user acceptance testing was progressed again. In terms of March to April, we then updated the hardware, which was primarily the kiosks in the various sites, so that City students could borrow in T and B in Tala and Blanchardstown. And the second upload to the test server was completed at this stage, was tested and validated, and staff training was ongoing, and then the single easy proxy solution set up. And then from May to June, the Sierra desktop application was put on the relevant machines. Data was validated again on the test server. That then allowed us to load the data onto the production server, and that data was confirmed as being viable. And then we set up Sun. And then in July, we had the soft go live and communication to everybody around that, with the hard go live in August. Just a very brief thing on the mapping. This was a very complex process and involved, in this instance, the bibliographic data, there was patron data as well. But just to describe, because we were coming from 3 different systems, the data and the structure of that data was different in each of the sites. It involved an awful lot of work to converge that, to converge that information, and because there were different practices, it involved a lot of standardizing so that that information could be ingested into Sierra. Just in regards to patron identification, and this sort of highlights one of the key problems that the project confronted. We were looking for a standardizing within the context of the library management system, but we had dependencies in relation to other systems. So we would have a dependency in relation to various instances of Banner in Tala, Blanchardstown, and City. Because those were different, because they're different versions of Banner and held different information, there's a lot of work that had to be done to enable that information to be uploaded into Sierra, and that problem wouldn't have happened had there been across the university a single Banner instance. That wasn't the case. And the same thing applies to ID cards. Number of different ID card systems working in the different sites. Again, this has actually created a lot of complications in terms of students being able to borrow and return books in the different libraries. Just in regards to this, it's quite technical. So if anybody's interested in this particular area, I would direct them to Ken Lacey. I'm sure he would be delighted to run them through the process. Okay, just then in terms of team cohesion and digital within the digital services team, we had a number of I suppose nodes of engagement that the team I would say presented opportunities for the team to cohere quite well. So that basically that happened within these areas. So like say we developed the project plan, we refined the project plan, and that was done on a team basis. We interacted with other agents within the library and outside the library. Problems were identified and resolved in a collaborative context. The training plan was developed again with in-house and Philip Kavanagh and Elaine Chaplin were involved in this, and did a great job in terms of developing videos and training staff on the various sites. And then we had a strong communication plan, and we worked with the comms team and within the library service and the comms team within the university as well. So all those strands there allowed this a development of good team cohesion. Because we're a new team, I suppose, emergent from the organizational design process, this was very useful for us to get ourselves stuck into a project of this type. So what were the lessons learned? So the value of there's a great value in a project governance structure. So we had a I suppose the project board was central to this. Then we had team meetings within the team itself. Again, then we had the project plan and technical plan, which provided us with a discipline in terms of how we progressed, visibility of where we were, and a visibility when there were difficulties arising. The communication plan, again, with all the aspects of communication that I've mentioned already, that was central to the project's success. If you don't, it allowed problems to be identified and problems to be resolved, and partnerships with the relevant people who would provide the solutions were in place because of good communication. So inclusion of stakeholders in the as-is and to-be workshops, again, that enabled input from our constituencies. The project scope, very important to have a discipline of sticking to the scope and not sort of allowing project drift, particularly in the context of scarcer resources. That means time and expertise and money as well. Another thing as well, just in terms of the project which emerged, sometimes I suppose technical people, which I'm not one of, but technical people sometimes think a technical solution is the way to tackle every problem. Not so. We learned through this process that we had presumed that a technical solution would be valid, but it was actually a process issue. So if the underlying process may be the solution. So if you have a particular problem or a particular workflow, it may not necessarily need a technical solution. It may just need a good process solution, and that's what was revealed through this project. Again, just in terms of the vendors, we would have understood them to be the experts. We were the recipients of their expertise, we thought, but that again didn't prove to be the case. It was necessary for, thanks to the vigilance of members of the team, it was identified that there was issues with the mapping that they were supposed to have done, that they had actually failed to do that. That was identified, and then again it was resolved. So don't count on vendors to be as expert as they're supposed to be. Great input on technology services, and great expertise was identified within the team as well. But, and this is another thing, I think, from my point of view, it seems to me that type of knowledge needs to be shared within the team. That's developmental for everybody, for the people who have the knowledge to share it with other people, and for the people who want to learn and want to progress their knowledge within the domain as well. And again, I suppose, expect the unexpected, which is a mantra for everything. So just in terms of the new possibilities, we are now better prepared for transitioning to a new LSP, even though that was outside the scope of the project. The project facilitated standardized acquisition and circulation workflows. Again, that's benefiting the receipt of the quicker receipt of resources so that they're available to our constituency at a greater speed. Enhanced discoverability through the summon system. And again, it emerges like when you have a summon system, I think the understanding was you put someone in and you have access to everything. Not so. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of attaching information within summon and making it structuring it in a way that allows the searches to reveal the resources in an effective way. Integrating the website, again, we're actually involved in that, and that could only happen because of the integrated library management system, or the success of the integrated library management system project. Improved reporting capabilities so that that's good management information can now be available to managers within the library service. the better to address gaps in service. And again, just the whole issue of data cleansing. It has been revealed that a lot of the data in the system needs to be cleaned up, and that again, that's an ongoing process. So I suppose of that, questions and answers, and I hope you're as easy on me as you were with the previous.
Like, so if anybody has any questions, any questions for Brendan? Anybody online?
I think I would see was when the background state segregation is going on, and the three institutions was just challenging. Was the strategy to integrate the circulation routes there?
I think the part of the translation law, I look like the one of the other.
Yeah, so the question is how difficult it was to align the circulation routes. What we did, Brendan kind of touched it on it in his presentation, was we defaulted as much as possible into the current rules that were already established in Sierra. So in that sense, it became more of a process change. But there were other things, I suppose, related to that down here. So even one of the bigger challenges would have been maintaining our acquisitions workflows while the library was still functioning. We still had to merge systems. So a lot of that was phasing certain things out in the older systems and then moving into newer workflows with the teams. So some teams started to kind of integrate with the systems change maybe sooner than other people would have done as well at the same time. So yeah, circulation was kind of a more blunt thing, but other things might have taken a more kind of phased and kind of considered approach as well. Does that answer it? Yeah. Thank you.
One thing we just not get in this like more standard opportunities for us to do other communities providing managers. So why they involved Sierra you possibly want to use the system.
Yeah, well, there were benefits. There are benefits to that. It's basically generating an integrated system before that project is actually completed. But it also means that we have done an awful lot of the work that would be necessary to do if we are actually going to the going into that system. So that work of integrating the two instances of Koha into Sierra, that would have been that's happening across the sector anyway. So all this anyway, that and I mean I was going to suggest that when people are doing that, there is some in-house expertise here in TU Dublin. I don't want to be sort of generating an awful lot of work for Jared, but I think he would be a useful contact for people who are involved in this. I know in the TU sector, what's happening there is there are numbers of instances of Koha in the various sites, but there's exactly the same problem. Those are structured in a different way. They need to be converged. The rules there needs to be standardizing. There needs to be data cleansed. So we've gone through that process. So I would invite it as a sort of a congenial sort of thing to suggest that, given that we've actually travelled the journey already, that expertise or that sort of that knowledge that has been generated through the process could be generally shared.
What's the highlight of the project for you?
Finishing it.
Thanks.
Well, I could elaborate. No, I suppose, in fact, I did mention the whole issue of the team cohesion dimension. So that would have been a very benefit. That was a very good. That was that was a highlight, I would say, yeah, that the fact that the team was able to gel together, that the expertise, that, I mean, I think they realized they had expertise that they may not have done before. People have developed skills within the context of the project as well, myself included. And I suppose it does reveal what you don't know as well, which is even better, you know what I mean? So that you know what you don't know, and you know now what you need to focus on. I mean, I would think, personally speaking, I've got a thing about project management as a technology, and I think if you and we are gifted in TU Dublin to have a project management office. It is a tool for getting job work done, and it's not a linear tool either. I mean, Andrew Kessler ran this seminar on the use of project management in terms of creativity. So, you know, you automatically think of it as a linear thing. You do this, you do this, you do this, and it sort of leaches out all the creativity dimensions. Not so. So regardless of what sort of activity you're involved in, whether it's a creative pursuit or whether it's a technical thing, not to say that there's any sort of incompatibility between creativity and technical work, that there isn't. But that to me, that was a bit of a revelation to me. And certainly I'd be developing that myself, looking into that and seeing how we can develop that within the team. And again, there's other aspects to that as well. You know, what sort of tools do you use? Do you use project man? You know, do you use project manager? Do you use, you know, Basecamp? What tools would be relevant in the efficient for our context? So just exploring that as well would be interesting. You know, and I think again, development would fund into that. I mean, I think it's probably just learning. To be honest with you, a lot of learning all across the board, and then that team building dimension as well.
Thanks.
I might add to that, Brendan, if I may.
Sure.
Certainly from a service delivery point of view, was getting the single service across the whole of the university. The 5 original sites were using different, while there was 3 LMSs, 3 library management systems, there were different processes across the 5 sites. So combining that to get a single service delivery to every patron was a major achievement. And it's one of the first services within TU Dublin to actually work across the whole of the university. But there's 1 or 2 other services, but not all the services are integrated yet. And it will be a long project to do, multiple projects to actually get that. But as library services, we've managed to do that, which I think is a great achievement.
Here.